will be. No. This is my sermon from last week. Love is patient. Love is kind. You already got the whole definition of agape love being both sacrificial and unconditional. Today, you get the next section, really 4 things rolled into one thought. It does not envy, and this is the NIV version. It does not boast. It's not boastful. And I know you can't all see that, sorry. Arrogant, or proud in NIV. And rude. Dishonor in NIV. In RSV, what you saw, rude. I'd like to talk today about these 4 things because you are all awful people filled with these things. The truth is that we are all filled with these things. But it's not because we're awful people. It's just because these things are so subtle. They're so sneaky. They hide their way into our lives and into our hearts without us really even recognizing them. In fact, we often justify them as being exactly the thing that someone needs. It's a strange thing. As I thought about how this relates to love, it's very obvious that these 4 things go together. They minimize others and maximize ourselves. It seems that these 4 things can be put together perfectly in a sentence because of that. These attributes are about self-promotion. They elevate us and bring others down. It's as if when we behave with envy, boastfulness, arrogance, pride, and rudeness, it's as if we treat God's resources as if they are limited and we are in competition with one another. Now, if you read the Daily Bread today, you will have felt a connection in some way with this message that we have about love. It's a beautiful message about helping others, and really it was related to the Sermon on the Mount, loving your enemy. But the whole point of it was that we love others the way that God would have us love them, the way that God does love them, and even more so, the way that we have been loved by them. Some of the ways that we justify it, this envy or arrogance or boastfulness or rudeness, I want to go through them just before I get into some of the thoughts on what each of these things mean. Because maybe you would say, honestly, when I look at these, I think of myself like, gosh, I really hope I'm not doing that. I don't think I am. But maybe something here can speak to us in a way that says, you know what, I'm going to dig further. I'm going to look and I'm going to think about the things that I do. You may not find anything right now, but maybe you'll just be challenged to say, you know what, maybe there's something that I can look for. Maybe there's something that I can be more aware of. These are some of the ways that we might minimize or justify these kind of behaviors that are not love. We might say they don't deserve it. Envy would say that, wouldn't it? They don't deserve it. That helps us to feel better about envying. I deserve it. But I just am better. I worked for this thing, for whatever, that gifting that I have. I've earned it. Ooh, there's a scary thing about it. We can think that we've earned it. This whole thing about love is a gift from God, and now that gift gets given on in some way. Remember, backing up, Paul's talking about the gifts that people have that are being used in the church. Now, at Corinth, some people are arguing that one gift is better than another. Paul tries to put that all to rest and say that no, love is the greatest of these. Love is the greatest. So if we think we've earned a gift, we're boasting, aren't we? I can't control how others feel about themselves. I'm just telling it like it is. This is probably my favorite. I can't control how others feel about what I say or do. If I'm just telling the truth, just deal with it. There's a certain arrogance that's there. That's a way to justify projecting onto someone else something that's not quite good. That's not. You're projecting on them that they are somehow lesser than, and that you are higher. If they don't like it, then they need to change what they're doing. Oh, that's so fun. If you don't like it, then just change. If you don't like the way that I'm behaving with you, it's your fault. You need to change. There's some rudeness for you. I wonder if there are just some very small, minor ways that we could be aware and protect ourselves and others in our interactions that reflect something other than these things, other than envy, arrogance. I'm struggling to go back and forth from the NIV to NRSV. Boasting, arrogance, or pride, and rudeness. Is there something that we could just, not that we have to become radically different, but that we could just turn the screw a little bit, tighten it up, to become more aware and a little bit more loving? I had some thoughts about envy. I'm going to try to go through some of these thoughts now with you about these traits, and maybe something will get triggered for you that will help us to sort of root these things out. It's actually been fairly recently that I saw this video of it's an experiment, really, a study of monkeys. And in one cage there's a monkey, in another cage there's a monkey, and a cucumber is given to both of the monkeys. A slice of cucumber. The monkeys are happy. You do it again. The monkeys are happy. They enjoy eating the cucumbers. Then a cucumber is given to the monkey and a grape to the other monkey. That monkey really enjoyed that grape. It may not be quite obvious yet to the other monkey that other monkey got the grape, because he's still enjoying his cucumber. But maybe he noticed for just a second. And then that monkey is given a cucumber again, and the other monkey is given a grape. Before that monkey could even eat the grape, the cucumber monkey threw the cucumber back at the observer. Threw it. They did it again. Same thing. The monkey is angry, throwing each and every cucumber now because he's not getting a grape. Isn't that sort of a perfect demonstration of how animal-like we all can be? We can go to that level of being unhappy with what we have. We would be fine with the gift that we have. And then something dark within us sees that someone else has something that we like more. And that can trigger us. But really, it goes back to the thought that God's resources are not somehow limited. It's not as if there's only one grape. God blesses the way that God blesses. I wonder if it demonstrates a lack of faith in some way to be envious. It reminds us of the parable of the vineyard, when the workers show up late and then they get the same pay as the ones who worked all day. And I have to admit, I'd be one of those, I'd be picketing. I would be the bad one that would say, no, I deserve more. I think that's the beauty of the parable, is it speaks to us about who God is and the blessing that God gives. It's not just speaking to us about the blessings that we already have. It speaks to the extravagant love that God has for those that show up late. Amen. God does what God does. And guess what? We could look at the other workers who get paid the same amount, that have a great gift, and truly we could celebrate. We could celebrate the generosity of the vineyard owner. Our tendency is to not celebrate. It's truly a divine moment when God helps you to celebrate. It's not because you're amazing, it's because God is so good to us. He helps us with the Holy Spirit to celebrate the gift that others have. And that is the antidote for envy, to celebrate. I wonder if the antonym, right, the opposite thing of envy is somehow related to celebrating or to generosity. It's got to be something that's polar opposite of wanting what someone else has. Maybe it has something to do with giving what God has, giving our best. If we want, in envy, if we want to take someone else's best, then maybe the antonym is to give others the very best that we can give, which is out of ourselves. It's giving what God has. Wow, Lord, help us to think like that. If you've ever thought like I have about the Parambos going to Utah, this is like a for real example. I'm like, oh, I want to go to Utah. I want to see Canyonlands. I remember saying like, oh, I envy you. And I think, am I really envying? Like, I really had to go through this thought process. Like, is that bad? No. I don't want to take Lauren and Dan's trip away from them so that I can have it. That's not what I want. I want to go too. So really what I'm saying is I'm mad that they didn't send me in a suitcase. No. I'm just saying that the way to gauge whether or not you have envy is if you truly wish. It's the same type of thing as forgiveness. Do you truly want to take that away from someone? Do you have a bad view of someone because of their good thing that they got from God? Ooh, that's envy. That's scary. I know there's so much, and I'm already pretty much out of time. Envy is a very recognizable thing out of these four things. I would say the other one that's most recognizable is being rude. Because even though these are all sort of like behaviors, they're, being envious or boastful or arrogant, they're very subtle in some ways. Now, if you ever meet someone that's not so subtle, there's a real issue. There's a real problem. But the low-hanging fruit in that person's life is not that they stop being arrogant. There's something deep level wrong, right? I'm talking about these subtle ways that we fail to love. Not like these, I knew someone, this is the funnest sort of illustration that I have of someone that's like boastful or arrogant. I was in church as a young man, and I literally knew someone. I can't remember his name. I saw him around for a couple months. He would come and visit the church. But when he would shake your hand, when he would shake anybody's hand, he'd look at his muscle. He'd look at his own arm. And I thought that was a hoot. I thought that was hilarious. Now, truly, that's not good. Something is really wrong. If you're showing off in every room that you go to, something is wrong. But it's not so subtle when you are rude, when your behavior gets to the level of rude. I think I'm just going to try to speak really quickly and lightly about boastfulness and arrogance, if I can. Just think in terms of boasting as gloating. To boast is to sort of gloat, and Paul even talks about something positive in this regard. If he boasts, he's going to boast in the Lord, and there is definitely a difference in you can be actually pleasing and honorable, gloating in who God is and what God has done in your life. I really do believe that. It's taking, excuse me, the danger comes in when you start to take ownership of that thing. When it's becomes something that you have done. And I think the same is true of arrogance. Arrogance, the Greek there, is to puff up. Is to puff up. It makes me think of things in nature. When I read the definition of this Greek word, it talks about puffing up. And can you guys think of animals that puff up in nature? I mean, I think even humans do it. Guys do it when they walk into a room and there's some ladies around. Puff up, man. You gotta look good and attractive. You gotta look bigger and better than you actually are. Do I look stronger than I did a second ago? Puffing that chest out. What do you think? Do I look a little stronger? You can fake it, but that's sort of what arrogance is. It's actually a demonstration in some way of an insecurity. Those animals that puff up in nature, usually it's because of a threat. And I think that when we are arrogant, we don't even understand it ourselves that we are trying to cover up some insecurity. We're trying to project something to others that says, like me, look at me, I'm a threat, I'm a danger to you, I'm stronger, maybe even that I'm more attractive, but there's something going on there that says I'm something that I'm not. And sometimes we don't even know it. It's born out of insecurity. I have to say this. Arrogance, if you feel like you ever struggle with arrogance, I don't know who that is in here, and I think I'm looking at a bunch of awesome people that don't really have this, but all except for Sharon. It's so funny. I think when I look at you guys, I'm thinking like, this is like preaching to the choir. This is just not who you are. But when you do have arrogance or you struggle with arrogance, you cheat yourself because you become the most unteachable person ever. And when you have love, for real love, that's not arrogant or boastful, you can be taught and brought to praise of God by being in the presence of anyone else. When you are not arrogant, you can be taught by a child. You can learn something from anyone. But when you're arrogant, it's only you who has something to teach others. Rude, I'm going to move into the rudeness that I didn't mean for real that we were having 2-hour service. So the rudeness is a clear behavior of rudeness. It is something that it's not just what you think or you feel, and it's a lot less subtle than these others. It can show up in something as simple as an eye roll. I mean, how long does it take to roll your eyes? I mean, we're talking a split second, a true 1/10 of a second probably, and you can communicate rudeness. And that tenth of a second can last for that person for the rest of the day, the week, the year, and even go to the grave with someone. It's amazing how rudeness can affect someone for so long. Rudeness can hurt in a way unlike these other things. Rudeness goes to a level of hurt, whereas envy goes to create avoidance. When you experience someone who is envious, arrogant, or boastful, you want to avoid those people. And you do, and you're better. With rudeness, you want to avoid them, but it lasts. It has to be something that you truly feel like you need healing for. Rudeness can hurt in a deep way. Now, I wish I knew the true intention of all of this in its original language, but that's the best that I can sort of study out and pull out of that. That an eye roll or a scoff or a laugh that can be short-lived can be truly long-lived. And sometimes the strange thing is we can do these things and feel like they were not even intentional. Things like correcting someone in a conversation, even when it's totally unnecessary, can be rude. It can be so subtle and seemingly innocent. But I have to I find myself holding back all the time with Joshua. What I'm telling you is I tend to be a rude person, I think, right? But like if I'm in a conversation with Joshua and there's just so many errors, I can't get hung up on those things. Let it go. Let it live. And that's true even with our relationships with anyone. There are some things that are just not important. And to elevate them to that level of importance becomes rude. I'm way over these four things. I mean, I've spent a week on patience, a week on kindness, and I got maybe 25 minutes in on these four. So you got the discount version. Spend some time thinking about it and praying about it and looking specifically at verses 4 through 7, which is where these things are found. And let's do our best to love the world, to love even our enemies, to love the seemingly unlovable without being envious, arrogant, boastful, or rude. Lord, help us to have self-control in every way. And I'll close with this thought. Remember that these are divine attributes. This is not something that you get to conjure up with your own self-discipline. It truly takes God's Spirit working in and through us to make this happen. To be so careful that we're never envious or boastful or arrogant or rude, it truly is divine. Holy Spirit, lead us and guide us so that we can share your miracle of love with the world. Amen.